I have lived almost a full lifetime, experiencing countless ups and downs, and I thought I was wise enough to make the right decisions. However, there is one decision I still regret to this day: choosing to move into a nursing home. At the time, I thought it was the best choice. My family reassured me, telling me that I would be well taken care of, that I would have company, and that I wouldn't have to worry about anything. I believed them. But once I stepped inside, I realized that everything was not as I had imagined. I know that right now, some of you might be considering the same thing, whether for yourself or for a loved one. I understand, because I once thought it was the safest path, the way to make life easier in old age. But before making that decision, I hope you will take a moment to listen to me. I want to share 6 things that, if I had known earlier, might have stopped me from making this choice. Because moving into a nursing home isn't just about changing where you live. It changes everything. And once you're in, leaving is not as simple as you might think. Please stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to say may surprise you. If you have a loved one who is considering moving into a nursing home, these words might be exactly what they need to hear before making a life-changing decision. Now, let's begin. Regret 1. Losing independence. The biggest shock when I moved into a nursing home wasn't the small room, the scheduled meals, or the unfamiliar faces. It was the moment I realized that I no longer had control over my own life. Before, I had my own rhythm of living. I decided when to wake up, eat, and how I wanted to spend my day. I could go for a walk whenever I pleased, make myself a cup of tea, or sit quietly in my favorite chair with an old book. These may seem like small things, but they were a part of who I was. But when I entered the nursing home, I quickly realized that my time was no longer my own. Everything operated on a rigid schedule, a schedule that I had no say in. Breakfast was served at a set time, whether I was hungry or not. The lights went off at a predetermined hour, regardless of whether I was ready to sleep. Want to go outside? You had to ask for permission, and perhaps wait. Choices that once seemed simple, what to eat, what to wear, suddenly became a luxury. I remember my first week there. That morning I woke up in an unfamiliar bed. I stretched, reached for the book I had been reading, but then I froze. Looking around the room, I suddenly realized this was no longer my home. The books, the familiar chair, the little things I had cherished for years, they were all gone. What remained were cold walls, a standardized room, and an emptiness I had never felt before. The hardest part? Realizing that once you lose your independence, getting it back is nearly impossible. You adapt because you have no other choice. You stop protesting when they tell you what to eat. You stop asking to go for a walk whenever you want. You learn to follow the system, and, little by little, you lose yourself. So, if you are considering moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up the little things that make your life yours? Because once they're gone, you will miss them more than you ever imagined. And this is only the first regret. Losing independence is not the only thing I mourn. There are still more regrets. Things I wish I had known sooner. Regret 2. The feeling of being forgotten. One of the most painful truths about moving into a nursing home is realizing that the outside world keeps going, just without you in it. When I first arrived, my family reassured me that they would visit often. I believed them, and at first they really did. My daughter came once a week. My grandchildren visited on weekends. The conversations were lively, the laughter still echoed, and I still felt connected to my old life. But then time passed. The visits became less frequent. My daughter started calling instead of coming. Then even the phone calls became shorter. My grandchildren got busy with work, friends, and their own plans, and I became accustomed to waiting for the phone to ring, for the door to open, for a familiar voice to call my name. Holidays were the hardest. They promised they would come, they said they missed me, but at the last minute something always came up. I would sit in the common room, quietly watching the other residents, everyone staring toward the door, hoping for a loved one to appear. I know my family still loves me. It's just that their lives move forward while I remain on the sidelines, gradually becoming more of a memory than a part of their present. I remember one evening sitting on my bed, holding my phone, wondering if I should call my son. A part of me wanted to hear his voice, to ask about his life, to remind him that I was still here, but then I put the phone down. I didn't want to be a bother. I didn't want to be a burden, and that was the moment I realized this was my reality now. If you are considering moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to face loneliness? Because no matter how much your loved ones care about you, when you are no longer present in their daily lives, you will slowly become just a name they mention on special occasions, rather than someone they regularly seek out. And then I realized something else. Loneliness doesn't just come from being forgotten. It also comes from something else, something I never thought I would have to face. Regret. 3. Losing the meaning of life. Before, each day had something for me to do, something to look forward to. I tended to my small garden, prepared my own meals, cleaned and arranged things the way I liked. These routines seemed ordinary, but they were the rhythm of my life. They made me feel useful, but when I moved into the nursing home, those familiar tasks slowly disappeared. Everything was already taken care of. Meals were brought at set times, the rooms were cleaned by staff, and even watering a plant was no longer my responsibility. At first, I told myself that I could finally rest. No more chores, no more responsibilities, just time to relax. But within weeks, I felt a vast emptiness inside me. The days dragged on, repeating endlessly. There was nothing to do, nothing to anticipate, just sitting there, waiting for another day to pass. I saw it not only in myself but in those around me. People who were once full of life, who had hobbies and passions, now just sat quietly, staring into space. There was a man named George, 84 years old. He had been a skilled carpenter all his life. When he was at home, he was always busy with small projects, fixing furniture, building shelves, restoring old pieces. But here, there were no tools, no workshop, nothing for him to create anymore. I watched as he withdrew into himself. The hands that had once been strong and skilled, capable of crafting beautiful things, now just rested idly on his lap. I feel useless, he told me one day, and I knew exactly how he felt. When there is nothing left to take care of, no purpose to work toward, life starts to feel meaningless. The mind slows down, the body weakens, and before long you begin to feel like just another old person sitting in a place where time moves, but nothing really changes. So if you are considering moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, what gives your life meaning? Because once those things are taken away, filling that emptiness isn't just about finding something to pass the time. It's a battle to hold on to yourself, to not be consumed by the void. But then, I realized that losing purpose wasn't the only thing I had to fight against. I lost something else. Something I never imagined I would have to struggle to keep. Regret. 4. Declining health faster than expected. Before moving into the nursing home, I was doing fine for my age. I wasn't as agile as I used to be, but I could still take care of myself. I walked every day, cooked my own meals, and did small tasks to keep my body active. I had a habit of stretching in the morning, going to the market for exercise, and even just pacing around the house to keep my legs from becoming stiff. But when I moved into the nursing home, everything changed. At first, I thought it was just a more comfortable way of living. I didn't have to worry about cooking. Meals were brought to me. If I needed anything, I just had to press a button and someone would assist me. I told myself, isn't this what enjoying old age is supposed to be like? But there was something I didn't anticipate. The less I did for myself, the weaker I became. I wasn't moving around as much as before, and soon I started feeling stiffness in my legs. I spent more time sitting, and one day as I tried to stand up from my chair, I realized that something as simple as that had become a challenge. The muscles I had worked so hard to maintain for years were disappearing faster than I ever imagined. And it wasn't just me, I saw it happening to others around me. People who had walked in here on their own 2 feet, after just a few months started relying on walkers, then wheelchairs, then eventually, they couldn't get up at all. I remember Alice, an 81-year-old woman. When she first arrived, she was full of energy. Every day, she took walks around the small garden, always insisting that she wouldn't let age slow her down. But gradually, I saw her walking less. Then one day, she started using a walker, then a wheelchair, until one afternoon, she sat next to me, sighed, and said, "I don't know when this happened, but I feel like I've aged 10 years in just a few months." And I knew exactly what she meant. When you stop using your body, you start losing it. Nursing homes are designed to make life easier, but sometimes convenience is a double-edged sword. The more help you receive, the more dependent you become. The less you move, the faster your body weakens. If I had known how quickly I would lose my strength, I would have tried harder, kept walking, kept exercising, kept pushing myself even when I didn't feel like it. So if you are considering moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, do you have the willpower to keep your body strong when everything around you encourages you to slow down? Because once you slow down, standing back up is not as easy as you think. Regret. 5. Losing privacy and dignity. One thing I never truly considered before moving into a nursing home was how much of my privacy I would lose. At home, I had my own space. I could close my door when I wanted peace and quiet, do things my way, and not worry about anyone watching or waiting on me. But in a nursing home, privacy is no longer a given, it becomes a luxury. From the moment I arrived, I felt like I was always being monitored. Staff members came in and out, checking the room at scheduled times. Common areas always filled with people meant that having a moment to yourself was rare. And even in my own room, the feeling of being alone never truly existed. The simplest things, changing clothes, taking a shower, even using the restroom, sometimes required assistance. I knew the staff was just doing their job, but it was hard to accept relying on others for things I had done on my own for a lifetime. I remember my first week here, struggling with the realization that I had to ask for permission for things I never had to think twice about before. Want to take a shower? You have to wait for your turn or for someone to help. Need to use the restroom? Pressing the call button doesn't mean someone will come immediately. Don't like today's meal? Too bad, your only choice is to accept it. And then there's the issue of having a roommate. Not everyone gets a private room, and if you're unlucky, you'll have to share your space with a stranger, someone you didn't choose. I was fortunate to have a kind roommate, but I've heard many stories of those who weren't as lucky. Some roommates are loud, untidy, or struggle with memory issues, making sleep a rare luxury. No one wants to complain, but no one can ever feel truly comfortable either. And even if you try to decorate, bring personal mementos, or make the room feel familiar, it never truly feels like yours. It's a space you've been assigned, a temporary place that never carries the warmth of the home you once had. But the worst part isn't just losing privacy, it's losing a sense of yourself. When people knock, but don't wait for you to answer before entering, when you are spoken to like a patient instead of a person, when your schedule is no longer yours to decide. All of these things slowly chip away at who you are. You stop feeling like an individual, you become just another part of the system, another name on a list, another person who needs to be taken care of. And that is what breaks my heart the most. Because when you no longer feel like yourself, you start to lose the one thing I held on to until the very end. Something more fragile than I ever realized. Regret. 6. Realizing that leaving isn't as easy as you think. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself it was just a trial. I wanted to see how things would go, whether I could adjust. And if I didn't like it, I thought I could leave any time, but I was wrong. I assumed that if I wasn't happy, I could simply return to my home, the place I had lived in for so many years. But then, I realized that my home was no longer the same. It sat empty, gathering dust over time. Maintaining a house I no longer lived in had become impossible. My children, with the best intentions, had started rearranging things, selling items they thought I no longer needed. even considering renting or selling the house. And when I said I wanted to return, I was met with hesitant looks. Are you sure you're still strong enough? Wouldn't it be safer to stay here? We just want what's best for you. I knew they were only worried about me, but their questions made me doubt myself. Was I still strong enough to live alone? Could I really manage on my own, as I once did? The truth was, after months in the nursing home, I was no longer the same person. I no longer cooked, no longer did household chores, no longer moved as much. And that had made me weaker. The independence I had once been proud of had faded, making the thought of leaving more and more frightening. I met many people who had thought the same way I did. They too believed this was just a temporary place. But as the months passed, they realized that leaving was becoming more and more distant. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to adjust to the outside world again. Some people even lost the choice to leave altogether. Their homes had been sold. Their savings had dwindled due to care expenses. Their bodies were no longer strong enough to start over. No one tells you this when you decide to enter a nursing home. They tell you that you always have a choice. But the truth is, for many people, this becomes a one-way road. The nursing home slowly becomes your whole world, and before you realize it, life outside is nothing more than a fading memory. So if you are considering stepping through this door, ask yourself, are you sure you won't regret it? Because once you're in, the way out is never as easy as you think, and sometimes you only realize it when it's too late. Looking back, I don't regret growing old, but I regret believing that moving into a nursing home was my only option. I entered this place hoping for comfort, safety, and a better life. I believed this would be a fresh start, a place where I could enjoy my old age without worries. But what I found was a world that slowly took away the things that mattered most: independence, privacy, the meaning of life, and even the sense of who I was. Does that mean all nursing homes are bad? Not necessarily. I know there are places that do their job well, and there are people who truly need the care that these facilities provide. But before you make this decision, think carefully, because when you enter, you're not just changing where you live, you're changing your entire way of life. And once that happens, your life will never be the same again. If I could do it all over again, I would fight harder to keep my home. I would explore more options to get help without giving up my freedom. I would make sure I truly needed a nursing home, rather than letting circumstances and others decide for me. And if you are facing this choice right now, I hope you take the time to ask yourself, is this really the best option for me, or just the easiest one right now? Because the life you have today, your routines, your freedom, your choices, are worth holding on to for as long as possible. Thank you for watching this video. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you've taken away from this story, as well as how you plan to apply it to your life. Your thoughts matter, and I truly appreciate every single one of them. Reading the comments from all of you always gives me motivation to keep speaking up about things many people might not have thought about before. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your loved ones. Your support not only helps me, but it also helps others gain perspective before making such an important decision in life. Thank you for taking the time to listen. See you in the next video.